With us now are two Westminster MPs representing marginal seats. At June's election, Labour's Paul Sweeney took Glasgow North East with a majority of 242, while the SNP's Neil Gray held on to Adrian Shorts by 195 votes. Thanks for joining us both tonight. Paul Sweeney, how does Jeremy Corbyn turn SNP votes into Labour votes?
Well, it's an interesting question. It's one I maybe pondered at the start of my election campaign, just how would I overturn a majority of 9,200 odd votes. It seemed impregnable, really, when I started my campaign, but I quickly found that people are genuinely hardwired for hope, and when they see a hopeful message, a positive message, I didn't once mention the Constitution or any issues around grievance politics. I mentioned a positive campaign, a positive message around social justice, a positive message around how we could transform this country. And that's really where Jeremy really was a lightning rod for that attraction, the enthusiasm for a positive socialist message in this country. And that's where particularly young people were energised by it. I mean, the one moment in my campaign that I realised something was definitely going on was when I saw a squad of lads walking up the street in Ridley, and they started shouting over the street at us. And I thought, you know, anyone who's experienced the frenetic campaigning of the referendum in the general election in 2015 would have immediately thought, oh no, we're going to get a mouthful here. And actually it turned out they were shouting over, you know, come on the Jez, we want to see Jeremy win, come on Labour, you know. And I was thinking, well, if you're seeing teenagers shouting over saying that, maybe people who wouldn't typically vote, there's something going on there. It's really positive.
So Neil Gray, how does the SNP respond?
Well, we've got to keep on doing what we've been doing at Westminster for the last couple of years, which is standing up to the Tories and being the effective opposition at Westminster, while Labour have been tearing themselves apart over leadership elections. And Paul, I think, signed a letter opposing Jeremy Corbyn's leadership last year. We were standing there toe-to-toe with the Tories and standing up to them and their cuts to Scotland and to the rest of the UK.
One of the big issues just now, of course, is Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn wants to leave the single market. How is that going to play in Scotland?
Well, I don't think that's actually entirely correct. The position that Labour has is somewhat more nuanced. Having spoken personally to Keir Starmer, for example, who's leading the Labour Party's position on Brexit, our key position is actually there is no such thing as membership of the single market. It's a misnomer, actually. What it is alignment with the single market and synchronisation with the single market. There's no appetite within Europe or the UK, frankly, for
what does that mean? What does that actually mean?
It means rules and regulations and standards that mean that you can trade freely without impediments across Europe. And the real reality is the Tories want to dilute all that because they want a bargain basement economy that will dissolve workers' rights and remove product safety standards because they see it as red tape.
So if it's that nuanced, can you get that across to voters here in Scotland who will think that Labour want to leave the single market, as I said?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. The reality is we want to maintain as close a relationship with Europe as practical, and that's what we want to achieve by minimising any sort of friction between trade and relationships with Europe, and that's what the nature of the single market is. So I think that's fundamentally what we want to achieve, a non-detrimental outcome.
It could have been a Tory government MP that had just given that answer about frictionless borders and closest possible alignment with the rest of Europe. The fact is that you're either in the single market or you're out the single market. And the fact of the matter, again, we're using Tory language here. The fact of the matter is that the Labour Party in Scotland and in the rest of the UK don't have a clue what they're wanting to do with regards to Brexit. That is shown in their total lack of opposition to the Brexit bill that went through Parliament. They were all over the place. They were their own MPs were bringing up amendments that were against their own leadership's position. They're in a complete mess.
But what can the SNP actually do at Westminster? They're really marginal to all of this.
Well, we've been trying to bring together, led by Stephen Gethins, we've been trying to bring together the people on all sides of the chamber who want to oppose a hard Brexit and want to see a proper relationship with the rest of the
with the number of MPs you have, what can you actually do?
Well, we can lead those discussions, and that's what Stephen Gethins has been doing, and that's been recognised over the last couple of years, where he's been opposing the hard Tory Brexit that we're trying to avoid for Scotland and for the rest of the UK.
Let's look at something else that was touched in the report. A number of yes voters who moved to Labour during the general election. That must concern you.
Well, obviously people vote differently at general elections from where they have done during referendums. But obviously what I was doing tonight, there's a by-election going on in my area in Fertisset around Shotts. I was campaigning in Salisbury tonight and knocking on people's doors and talking to them about the issues that matter to them and what their local council has been doing, including moving bin collections to 3 weeks and cutting classroom assistants. It's issues like this that people want to talk about.
Because of unprecedented SNP cuts in Scotland, which is actually real Tory reaction rather than just words.
Decisions that have been taken by a Labour-controlled council in North Lanarkshire that are now in cahoots with the Tories.
Just had the Mills and funding cut.
Okay, just respond to that point.
Well, I would just say, I mean, it's a great example of how the SNP talk left at Westminster and act very conservatively in Holyrood. We've seen no action in 10 years of an SNP government in Holyrood to redistribute wealth, empower and interest in the favour of working people in this country. And I think that is the fundamental you can make these points about talking like a Tory, but actually acting like a Tory is exactly what the SNP do at Holyrood.
How do you get these voters back?
Well, it'll be interesting on Friday.
These voters, how do you get them back? Those who were yes supporters and would... I know not all yes supporters were SNP supporters, but you've lost, certainly a lot of them moved to Labour during the general election. How do you get them back?
Well, clearly the SNP's been in government for 10 years and we've done a lot of very good work, and we've got to remind people of that very good work that we've done over the last 10 years. We've got a record to be proud of in Scotland, and we've got to get down and do the hard yards and knock on the doors and speak to people and listen to their concerns and respond to them, and that's what we are going to be doing. It'll be interesting on Friday. I understand that Jeremy Corbyn's going to be visiting my constituency, indeed visiting a building that I have an office in Shot. So it'll be interesting to see whether he responds to the fact that the Labour Party has been propped up by the Tories in North Lanarkshire, or indeed the fact that their council leader is currently under investigation and was only saved from having to step aside tonight by Tory votes.
Well, Alex Salmond was propped up for years in the Scottish Parliament by Tory votes, including Annabel Goldie.
Looking at the bigger idea of the Constitution, then, Paul Sweeney, Kezia Dugdale's big idea is federalism. Will Jeremy Corbyn be pushing that when he comes to Scotland?
Yeah, I believe so. Federalism...
He's committed to that, then?
I believe that the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn's committed to a constitutional convention which is primarily geared towards finding a federal solution to the UK constitution. And I think I've believed in federalism since I did modern studies in school, you know, so I've always been bought into the federalist idea. I think it's the only viable endpoint for the UK. I don't believe the endpoint is separation.
So the UK and Scottish Party are as one on this?
I believe so, yeah. John Trickett's been commissioned to lead this, and we're really keen as a Scottish group of MPs as well to lead it as well. And it's one of the key priorities for me. The first thing I said in the Chamber is I actually stood up and challenged Theresa May directly on this. All these powers coming back to the UK with Brexit. How are we going to actually deal with that distribution of power and influence across the UK? And I think the only way to do it is a constitutional convention that will advance a federalist situation in the UK.
Cause of independence, will you be pushing that hard, given that before the summer the suggestion was that it'll be pushed back?
Well, obviously I believe in independence, the SNP believe in independence, and of course the people that I speak to on the doorstep know that I believe in independence and will continue to push and advocate the reasons why I believe in independence, and that's because I believe Scotland could be a fairer, more progressive country if we had full powers of independence. And I hope that Paul, in advocating his constitutional convention and federalism route, will start talking to some of his Labour Party colleagues who stop the devolution of employment law.
Very, very briefly and very finally, let's look at the reports by the Electoral Reform Society saying that 1.8 million votes in Scotland were wasted over the general election. We can look at some of the stats there. Very briefly from both of you, is that fair, the current system we have? Paul Sweeney.
Well, I'm naturally more inclined towards a proportional representative system. I think that's the way to go.
At Westminster?
I supported the AV referendum. Maybe it's a bit nuanced, but I mean, I certainly think that that's a more progressive system.
And Neil Gray?
Yeah, I mean, the SNP, even when we won a landslide in 2015 under a first-past-the-post system, have always said that we believe in proportional voting systems.
And there we'll leave it. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. Thank you.